Thanks for sharing that, Phil. And we're now live streaming, so go ahead, Sue.
The day is close. I'm having left rotator cuff surgery this Friday. Enough said.
All right, we'll keep you in our prayers. All right, well, now I can officially welcome everyone to Desert Palm UCC, and we have one more joy and concern to share as we get started.
My youngest son, Mike, he's got a serious foot problem. He's going on with much pain. It seems to be improving.
Okay, we'll keep Ron's son, Michael, in our prayers as well, too. Well, welcome again on this Palm Sunday, festive Sunday, so we've got some wonderful music and a nice service in store. We'll be processing in shortly. We just have a couple of quick announcements. Our WISE team is inviting anybody who'd like to socialize a little bit more after coffee hour over at Panera, which is just go down Guadalupe to the first big intersection there. And Panera will be in one of those shopping centers on your right. Whoever's on the WISE team, you want to raise your hand. So in case you're interested in joining us, you'll see there's Catherine back there, Rich, Ray. Yeah, so that's always a lot of fun for anybody who makes it. And this coming Thursday is our Maundy Thursday service. And I know for many, many years we've set up tables in the shape of a cross. This year we're doing something different with a lot of special music, so the chairs are going to be facing this way. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up to be prepared. We'll be starting with light snacks over in Mission Hall at 6:30, and then we'll come over here for the service at 7.
Speaking of that service, several of our youth are going to meet right after church today to work on their part of the script that they're doing in that. So we're thankful that our young people are participating and helping us with that special service, and to invite you for that. And I guess, is Pat gonna?
Is Pat
we have a special slot. Reamer.
Yeah, you
The
can
slides
put the slide
guy
up,
can
Jacob.
go ahead and.
Next Sunday, after the 9 o'clock service, there will be an Easter egg hunt for the Sunday school age children. Those are children ages 3 through 4th grade. So the children will meet in Mission Hall right after the service or after Sunday school, and the Easter egg hunt will be on the playground. So children may bring their own baskets, or we'll have bags for them if they prefer not to bring a basket. So we hope to see all the children here for the Easter egg hunt next week.
Great, thanks, Pat. You can give that to Mark. And lastly, today is the last day to order Easter flowers in memory of a loved one. So if you'd like to do that, there's little forms in the back. Leslie's holding them up back there. They're on the back table. All right, well, as we transition into a time of worship, we're going to have a prelude prior to our processional music. And I just want to say, for folks who are visiting for the first time today, during the season of Lent, we've just been turning our attention to suffering, acknowledging the reality of suffering in life, recognizing that ultimately we're invited by God to surrender, to let our defenses down, to deal more honestly with our own fragility, and to see the light of the divine in our neighbor so that we can have compassion and try to get through this challenging life together as a faith community. So on that note, let's enter into a time of worship.
Please rise in body or spirit to join in the responsive call to worship. Behold, your God comes to you, O Zion, meek and lowly, sitting upon an ass. Ride on in the cause of truth and for the sake of justice. You have loved righteousness and hated evil. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your fellows.
If you'd all join me in our opening hymn, number 216, All Glory, Laud, and Honor.
Wow, amen. Let's take a moment now to pass the peace of God to our neighbor. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Let's sing our children up for our intergenerational moment.
on. Okay, so it's a good thing Olivia came up here, because she's like, are you all ready for your moment? Are you all ready to do your thing? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And she goes, and what are these things for anyway? I'm like, that's what my moment's about. So we're going to watch a short little video that's going to explain all about it. So Ben, when you're ready. Not yet. So hopefully.
Palm Sunday is the first day in an important week in the Christian calendar called Holy Week. The exact date of Palm Sunday will change each year because the festival of Easter's date depends on the moon. However, Palm Sunday will always begin a week, which follows with important days such as Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter will be on the Sunday following Palm Sunday. On Palm Sunday, Christians remember the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem on a donkey. Jesus rode a donkey as opposed to a horse because it was a humble way to travel and showed that he came in peace. It also fulfilled a prophecy from the Old Testament which said that the king would come, gentle and riding on a donkey. A large crowd welcomed Jesus, waving palm leaves, shouting Hosanna, and throwing their cloaks at Jesus' feet to make the way less bumpy for him. They laid palm leaves in front of him as a sign they believed his message and that he was king. Jesus healed the lame and the blind at the temple, but not everyone was happy. Some of the chief priests and teachers of the law disapproved. On Palm Sunday today, many Christians celebrate with a special service in church. People are traditionally given a cross made from a single palm leaf. Many churches reenact the Palm Sunday story with a procession either outside or around the church, while people sing songs of praise and wave palm leaves. In the Netherlands, palm crosses are decorated with sweets and bread. In the Philippines, people act out the story of Palm Sunday with someone dressing up as Jesus and riding on a real donkey. While in Spain, people wear their best clothes or special costumes and go on walks called processions.
Okay, wow, she's saying that, or said that like a carnival barker there. It just went so fast. But hopefully you got the gist of it. I think you, did you understand it, Olivia?
Up? My name is Mr. Joey, and today is a
So why do we
special,
do it?
important, awesome day. Do you know what today is?
We do it.
Today is Palm Sunday.
Yay! When Jesus came,
That's right. Palm Sunday is the Sunday before Easter Sunday. And we celebrate it as a special holiday
important.
because of what happened one
It
week
does show that God
before
is king.
the
That's right.
very first.
All right, so let's all
That's
just
what we're
take
gonna talk
a
about
moment,
today
take a deep
on
breath.
Jesus Said
as we
Kids.
Get ready to say the Lord's Prayer. Okay. Our Mother and Father, who art in heaven.
So what happened on Palm Sunday, and what does it have to do with Easter? Well, the very first Easter wasn't even called Easter, and something happened on that Sunday that was amazing. It was the greatest Sunday ever, because on that Sunday, Jesus, who had been
everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
do something. See, to know that story, we're gonna have to go.
The gospel
to
reading
only
is from the
place
book of
you can
John,
find
chapter
that
12,
story.
verses
You know where it is?
12 through
It's
19.
in the Bible.
The next day, the
That's what you
great
need to
crowd
do.
that had
You
come
need to
for the
get your
festival
Bible.
heard
You're
that
going to
Jesus was
open
on
it
his
up
way to
and read it for
Jerusalem.
yourself.
They
You're
took
gonna read
palm
that
branches
story.
and went out to
So,
meet him,
yes,
shouting,
grab a Bible,
Hosanna!
grab your own
Blessed
Bible,
is he
grab
who
your parents'
comes in the
Bible,
name
grab
of
your
the
brother or
Lord.
sister's Bible.
Blessed is the King of
Grab your
Israel.
own Bible.
Jesus
You
found a
find
young
that Bible,
donkey
need you
and
to
sat
open
on it,
up to the
as it
book
was
of
written,
Matthew,
Do not be
chapter
afraid, daughter of
21.
Zion. See,
Start
your
at
king is
verse
coming,
1.
seated
So
on
the
a
book is
donkey's colt.
Matthew.
At
The
first,
chapter
his
is
disciples did not
21.
understand all this.
And the verse
Only
is
after
1.
Jesus was glorified
Matthew,
did they
the book,
realize
the
that
big
these
number,
things had been
21.
written about him. and that these things had been
The
done
story begins with
to him.
Jesus traveling to
Now
a
the
city
crowd that
called
was with
Jerusalem.
him when he
It was the
called
most
Lazarus from the
famous
tomb
city
and
in
raised him
all
from
of
the
Israel,
dead
the most
continued to
important,
spread the
the
word.
capital. You
Many
know what was
people,
there?
because they had
So
heard that
important.
he had
The
performed this
temple of
sign,
God.
went out to meet
He
him.
was going there to
So the
celebrate a
Pharisees said
big
to one another,
holiday, the
"See,
biggest holiday
this is
in
getting
the
out
world
of
to
hand,
Jews.
getting us
The holiday
nowhere.
was called
Look
Passover.
now, the whole world
Passover
has
is a
gone after
holiday
him."
that celebrates God rescuing the Israelites from Egypt. Do you know that story about Moses delivering the Israelites out of Egypt? That's what you celebrate on Passover. Jesus celebrated this holiday every single year, and so did every other
Well, I just
Jew.
wanted to
There
note
were
that
hundreds of thousands
Palm Sunday,
of Jews
I think
traveling to Jerusalem at
the
the
organizers
same
of church world down through history, you know,
That's where
had the
story
wisdom
begins.
to
As
insert
Jesus was
this
approaching
joyous
Jerusalem,
day in the
he
midst of a
looked at
time where
two
we're
of his
really
disciples
wrestling with the
and he said
reality of
this.
suffering
Read
and
with me in Matthew
journeying with
chapter
Jesus on
21,
his way
verse.
to Jerusalem. And
Jesus said,
there's always
"Go
this,
to the village ahead of
you know, the
At
pause
once you will find a
on Palm
donkey
Sunday
tied
where
there
we
with her
get to
colt
feel
by
some
her.
of that
Untie them and
celebratory
bring them to me. If
energy.
anyone says anything to you, say
In
that
general,
the Lord needs them.
we have
He
been
will send
talking
them
about
right
suffering
away."
during the season of
They
Lent.
did
I think,
just as
you know,
Jesus told them
both
to do, and they
Sonia and I,
found
what we've
exactly
tried
what
to
Jesus said they
lift
would.
up is this
There was a
idea
mama
that
donkey tied up
it's
right
hard to
next to
keep
her
your heart
baby, a
open
colt.
in this
There was a
day
man
and
who
age
said,
and world
"Hey, what are you
in
doing?"
which
And
we
they
live.
said, "We're taking
But
these
that there's
donkeys.
great
The Lord needs them."
value in
Why did
doing
Jesus
that,
do
because
this?
when we
Why did he have them
open
go
our
and
hearts
get
in the midst
these
of
donkeys?
pain, we open our
The
hearts to
first
each
reason
other.
is really simple. Jesus
That
was
is
going
what
to
grows
ride
us.
the
That is
donkeys
what
into the
leads
city.
to spiritual
The second reason is
deepening,
not
to
so simple.
spiritual
Jesus
growth
had them
and
get those
maturity.
donkeys to fulfill
So
a
that's one of the big
A
takeaways
promise
that
that
we've
God had
been
made through the
emphasizing, that we
prophet
need to
Zechariah
open our
almost 500
hearts
years
to each
before
other,
this.
acknowledging our
Have
own
you ever heard
pain,
of Zechariah? Have you
and
ever
being
read any of
present with
Zechariah?
compassion to
Well,
witness
Matthew, who
the
wrote the
pain
book
and
of Matthew,
suffering
knew
of
exactly
others.
what
And
Zechariah
a
said.
corollary
He
is
even
just
wrote it
that
down in his
fits right
book.
with that, is that
Zechariah
we need
9:9
each other,
says the
that we
same
are
thing
social
as Matthew
beings,
21:5.
that nobody can go it alone.
God
and that
said to Zechariah,
to get through this
"Say
thing
to
called
the daughter
life,
Zion,
we need
see,
to
your
recognize
king
that
comes to
we
you,
are connected in
gentle
deep and
and
beautiful,
riding on a
mysterious
donkey,
ways.
and on
We
a
need to
colt,
celebrate
the
that
foal
and
of
leverage
a donkey."
that.
God was telling
So this is
Zion,
really one
another
of
name for the
life's
city of
great
Jerusalem,
mysteries,
that
I think,
their king
around
was
which the
coming,
Christian
but not
tradition
riding
as
on
a
war
world
horse,
religion has been
not riding
circulating
on a chariot,
for thousands
riding
of
on a
years
donkey,
now. This
the colt
idea
of a
that
donkey.
opening
That
to the
prophecy was
pain
coming
of the
true at
world
that very
can lead us
moment.
to a
The
deeper
true king
experience
was riding
of
into the
connection
city, but he
with
wasn't
God,
wearing
with ourselves,
armor or
with each other,
robes or a crown.
ultimately with the natural
He was
world
gentle,
and the cosmos.
poor.
You all know that I
Crowds started gathering all
love the
around
poet
Jesus.
Rilke,
They
the
knew
German
who
poet.
he was. He had been
Rainer Maria
performing
Rilke
miracles in
is
that
one of my
area for
favorites, and
years.
one of his books that I
The crowds
return
cheered.
to
People
over and
took
over
off
is
their
a simple
coats.
little
They threw
thing
them on
called,
the ground in front of
it's now
Jesus.
referred
It
to
was
as
like
Letters
rolling
to a
out
Young
red
Poet.
carpet of coats. And the people had branches from palm
That's because
trees,
it's
and
a
they waved
collection
those,
of,
and they
of
threw
letters
those
that,
on the
that
ground
he
too.
wrote, much like
You
a
see
big part
now
of
why
the
we
New
call it
Testament,
Palm
by the way,
Sunday.
right? We
It's
have the
because the
epistles,
crowd
and
waved
these
and
are
threw
all
on the
letters.
ground
I said
these
the other day in a
palm
sermon
branches.
that we're really,
Some people
we're
call
oftentimes
this the
we're reading Paul's
triumphal
mail
entry.
when
Say,
we talk about
triumphal
what he
entry.
wrote to the Corinthians or the
The
Romans.
triumphal entry is a parade
Ken
that
got a kick out of that, and it said, hey, I really liked what you said about, we're reading Paul's mail. And so it's actually, I stole that from a minister friend of mine who, growing up, he said that once, and I never forgot it. Rilke, as you may recall, as a young boy, he was shipped off to a military academy, which was not a good fit. He was raised as a girl during his early years in life. His mother liked to dress him in a dress, and he was very effeminate and would go on to become one of the greatest poets of all time. But as a young kid, he was sent to a military academy. So fast forward to him, he has left the military academy, become a well-known poet, and there's another young poet at this military academy reading Rilke under a tree. And one of the teachers walks by and snatches the books out of his hand and says, oh, so our Rilke has become a poet. And this kid who was reading this poetry was like, Oh my God. this poet actually went to this school. And so he wrote Rilke a letter. And he said, I like to write poetry too. Can you help me? And Rilke's letters back to this boy are so beautiful that they've been collected and they've impacted many, many people's lives. It's from those letters that we get that famous quote from Rilke that some questions we can't just get an answer to, that we have to live our way into the questions. One of the main themes, if you sit down and read the collection of letters, which doesn't take long, you can probably do it in an hour, one of the main themes is it resonates with what we have been talking about here, that there is great value in facing our own suffering, our own loneliness. We talked about the pandemic of loneliness that the Surgeon General has been calling attention to. We talked about that last week. Rilke's advice to this young poet is not to run from your pain or your despair, that this is part of your experience. Embrace it. In the introduction to the letters, Lewis Hyde puts it this way. He says, Rilke's simple suggestion is that the discipline of art demands a turning towards rather than away from such states of mind. So we do this in order to claim our experience. We open to life. And by doing that, we open to the one who called forth all life. Rilke himself in his poetry puts it this way. When I lean over the chasm that is myself, I see that my God is dark and like a web, 1,000 roots silently drinking. So this is all by way of saying that a willingness to accept life's pain sets us upon the spiritual path of Jesus. He saw those who suffered around him. That's part of what distinguishes him. You know, oftentimes people are invisible. And Jesus saw the people who suffered and he went to them. You know, our folks here from Desert Palm who are volunteering at the Welcome Center, you know, they're seeing immigrants who are just arriving here. You know, they're seeing the faces of the people who are suffering. So because we're thinking about all these things during the season of Lent, we're reminded of the cross and the larger dynamics of history, these recurring patterns by which, you know, groups gang up on innocent victims. That is one of the key insights surrounding Holy Week, right? Jesus was trying to do good things, but somehow that elicited the ire of the mob. So we see this kind of scapegoating dynamic happening all the time, right? It's happening in Gaza. I mean, the people who are starving and dying there are innocent. Or we don't have to look to the Middle East, you know. We can look at pictures of lynching here. I mean, that is that dynamic. Back when we did our series on banned books, we talked about To Kill a Mockingbird. The key scene in that book, in, you know, down home America, is a lynch mob coming to kill the black man in the jail. And it's the child who says, hey, Mr. Smith, how's Jimmy? Hey, Mr. Jones. She starts identifying them, and the dynamic of the mob melts away. So this is a time where we're trying to understand what is going on with that pattern of violence. Some would say, and I would agree, that this anthropological insight into how groups purge themselves of fear and guilt by killing innocent victims is one of the great insights of Christianity as a world religion. You know, people want to say religion's irrelevant, and then there's a police shooting of a black man. Or we open a history book and we see lynching, right? Or what's happening to sexual minorities now, today, and of course, systemic racism is real. These things are relevant. Jesus, executed by empire, is at once a historic and archetypal event. It is a signpost that gives us a social CAT scan of history, of humanity. So that's one of the lessons to be drawn from the gospel story that we are circling around. And we're getting closer to the time of the cross, to the great mystery of the resurrection. And the challenge, as we have seen during our Lenten time of reflection, is to stay open, to keep our hearts open. We want to shut them down. It's too much. The news is so traumatic. I've had a few moments where I've been like, okay, I have to practice what I preach, because I keep saying, oh yeah, people keep telling me I can't take the news anymore, so I turn it off. And I say that as a way of acknowledging the pain in the world, but in challenging us to stay with it. But then I find myself turning off the news. But here, what I've been doing lately is when I hear one thing that just fills my heart and soul, whether it's with anguish or hope, love, or despair, then I turn the news off and I think about that phrase, So we got to keep our heads above water, but we need to keep our hearts open to the best of our ability. So all of these themes come together in this film. I put something on Facebook. Some of you saw it yesterday on the church page saying, hey, this is your last chance to watch this movie before I give it away. Because if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I said, okay, I talked about this movie a little bit, and then I said I wouldn't ruin it until Palm Sunday. So here we are, Palm Sunday. So for those of you here for the first time, or you haven't seen the movie, you don't remember what I said a couple of weeks ago, sometimes I have a hard time remembering, so don't feel bad about that. But this film called Radical is based on a true life story of Sergio Juarez Correa, a university academic who left the academy to teach 6th grade. He was inspired by an actual educator in Delhi in India who was doing amazing work, so amazing that Sergio decided to become a 6th grade teacher. As you watch the film, in the very beginning, he does these very unorthodox things. I described his first day of class. He was lying on the ground as if he were swimming. When the kids got there, he was like, kids, the ship has sunk. We're drowning. We have so many lifeboats. There's so many of us. We got to do the math. We got to figure it out. And right away, he was drawing them in. The principal shows up, and you think he's gonna say, what the heck are you doing? That's what he starts to say. But Sergio sees him, and rather than being embarrassed and jumping up and trying to save the moment, he says, kids, another survivor of the shipwreck, grab him. And they pull him in. It's an amazing film, the way he opens up these kids' minds, He's like, what do you want to learn about? One of them says boats, and they go to the library, they go, they start Googling things, and it's just amazing. And then the positive momentum comes to an abrupt halt because there's a vicious gang killing of one of the kids who's being drawn into the gangs he doesn't want to be, but they're coming after him, and he tries to resist, and they end up killing him. And that takes the wind out of the sails of Sergio. Is just lying in bed, not wanting to move, and the students in his class are traumatized, and but that principal that he has a relationship now with goes to Sergio's house and pleads with him and says, hey, I know you're hurting. We're all hurting, but you've done great things with these kids, and they need to take the test. A national test was coming up. So he rallies Sergio, and then Sergio goes to the home of his star student who was there when the little boy was killed. It's all based on a true story. I don't know if that part is true or not. but she obviously knew the boy, and she was traumatized. And when Sergio gets to her house, she lives next to this huge dump. And we talked about this back when our text was Golgotha, right? The place of skulls. And Sergio sees that the little girl, his student, is standing on this mountain of garbage, sifting through it, trying to find things of value. This is her life. And he goes to her and he says, we need you. We need you to take this test. And she says to him, you believed in me. And that meant the world to me. And I will never forget that as long as I live. But look around you. And she gestures to this mountain of trash. And to Sergio's credit, you know, in that moment, he doesn't try to convince her or persuade her. He recognizes what she's saying. Yes, life is hard. And sometimes we just have to pause and be with each other and recognize that and support each other as we try to survive. But if you've seen the movie, and I know some people saw it last night, and they got the memo, that is not the end of the story. Because the gospel promise is that if we open ourselves to suffering, we will find that the power of love is greater than all that opposes it. So on the day of the test, all the students are there, and all these other classes. It's like a 6th grade middle school in some country, some little city in Mexico. It's an outdoor kind of area where they are, all at their little kind of old-fashioned desks. And there's one noticeably empty seat. And Sergio was looking at that seat, and he's like, oh my gosh, is she going to come? And sure enough, right as the alarm bell rings and they're starting to lock the doors for the test, she steps in that doorway. And she comes in. And if that is not like the spiritual equivalent to the triumphal entry, I don't know what is. And the look that Sergio and his student exchange in that moment is just so beautiful. And I have to think there is a close connection to how he saw her, how the other students saw her, and how that crowd saw Jesus. Right? Because there's something sacred that happens when we let our guards down and we really see each other. I mean, it's funny because I had all this on my heart and soul today. It was so fun to watch everybody come in. And for some reason, we had like 20 greeters out here, along with Jim and Ellen. Everyone wanted to greet everyone. It was so beautiful, and it fits so well. One of the reasons I like this film so much is that it does such a good job of holding the suffering and holding the sacred together, right? It acknowledges how hard life can be, but it says the story doesn't have to end there. I mean, we could invoke Viktor Frankl. We often do, and there's a reason for that. Because, you know, we need to counter the cynicism that says, oh, it's too much. You know, it's too much. We just cannot keep hope or love alive. But Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, says we always have a choice. We have the ability to decide how to respond, no matter how horrendous the things are that we have to face. But we have to show up. In order to choose how to respond, we have to be present, right? I have to walk through the door. Like that little girl who decided to take the test that day. She showed up. Like Jesus riding into Jerusalem, like Bonhoeffer going back to Germany, like Romero holding up the chalice. There's somebody standing in the back of the church with an AK-47 preparing to kill him as he served communion. To be able to choose how to respond to life, we have to show up. Like each of you who's here or watching. This is what it means to be part of the church. We show up. We are the body of Christ on earth. As we tend to each other's growth, we are tending a sacred garden, the garden of life. Sergio, that sixth grade teacher in Mexico, understood that. He really wanted to see the growth of his students. And that girl, by the way, the one that he felt he saw so much potential in, that would be Paloma Noyola. I should be able to say her name. You know, my own last name is Martinez, but Catalina will tell you my Spanish, it needs some work. But her name is Paloma. She was played by Jennifer Trejo in the film. She ended up getting the highest score in the country of Mexico on that day. So I close by saying, imagine what you could do with what remains of your wild and precious life if someone dared to believe in you the way Sergio believed in Paloma. And the exciting thing is that there is a being that believes in you in that way and more. May it be. Amen.
Our call to offering. When you have no words, when you cannot find your voice, God approaches. Let us reach out to our God. Let us give our gifts.
Last night I lay a-sleeping, there came a dream so fair. I stood in old Jerusalem, beside the temple there. I heard the children singing, and ever as they sang, I thought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. I thought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, lift up your gates and sing, Hosanna.
By way of benediction today, I just want to remind everybody that there'll be palms in the back, so if you'd like to take one, you can. And whether you take a physical one or not, I hope part of your takeaway from this day is, that each one of you is really the person that shows up at the gate right as the alarm bell rings. I mean, isn't that what Jesus tried to tell us with the story of the prodigal son, right? The person goes off and wanders, and then when the child returns, that parent is so overjoyed, so filled with love. Jesus was trying to say, this is the way it is for each of us. We just forget that. So take a palm or remember the palm as being a reminder that sacred light that was in Christ is also in you. Go in peace. Amen.